Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a list of books that I'm a little nervous to pick up for various different reasons. I have a lot of books on this list, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. I still intend to pick up all of these books that I'm going to mention, and then you will see why I am actually still a little bit scared to pick them up. And the first one would be The Knife of Never Letting Go. I've heard really fantastic things about this series. I've heard it's very unique, and the premise sounds fascinating. People have the ability to kind of hear each other's thoughts, and the writing style reflects that because the character, there's like multiple things happening a lot of the times, and apparently the character doesn't know really how to read or how to spell, and so things are misspelled in the book, and I think that's a really creative decision. I think it can be very immersive, or it can be distracting and maybe even potentially frustrating for me. Maybe that's going to be part of the point, that you feel this frustration through the way it's written, and so you kind of connect with the character even more. I don't know, I haven't picked it up yet, but I'm a little nervous. I think it's going to be really cool. At the end of the day, I will always appreciate books that take a risk in doing that. I think, for example, The Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, they took a risk in doing that. I have another book, Sleeping Giants, that is told in mixed medium that I haven't picked up. You could say a similar thing about that one, that I'm kind of nervous to pick up both of these. I usually am just a basic girl. I like my books pretty straightforward in their delivery, but I don't know, I could end up loving it. Next up, we have Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I've read two different works by Naomi Novik. I have read the first book in the Temeraire series, which I enjoyed. It is a retelling of the Napoleonic era, but there are dragons, and the dragon Temeraire is so precious and so cute. And then I read Uprooted by the same author, and very much didn't care for it. I thought the folklore elements were really interesting, creepy, very atmospheric, and I really appreciated those elements of the story, but there were some other things about the story, the pacing, the main character herself, her thought process behind things, some things that happened in the book I just wasn't the biggest fan of. It felt very meandering to me, and I know it's very well loved. I have heard people say that even if you don't like Uprooted, still give Spinning Silver a try. There are some people who really didn't like Uprooted and felt similarly to me, but ended up loving Spinning Silver. So I still have high hopes for this one. I'm just a little nervous after how I felt about Uprooted. This next one, I'm sure a lot of you saw coming if you have seen my recent July-August wrap-up, or you follow me on Instagram. Tagana by Guy Gabriel Kay. I picked up Under Heaven by this author and DNF'd it because, well, the writing style wasn't my favorite, but I'm okay with picking up books that have writing styles that aren't my favorite. For example, Strange the Dreamer, Queens of Innis Lear, those have very flowery writing that's not necessarily my cup of tea, but I'm okay with it if I'm really gripped by the story or the themes or the characters, and I can appreciate it. This writing style, I didn't love. It just kind of, I hate saying felt bloated, because I don't like being negative, but for me it just felt like a lot of words that didn't really make me think like, wow, that was so beautiful, that was so pretty. And that could just be Under Heaven, it could just have been my experience with it, but that coupled with the intense amount of characters thinking about how they hadn't done it in a while, if they would do it with the women they saw, thinking about the women they've done it with in the past, wanting to, the main character didn't want to have sex with a dead body, but someone else did, and that was just kind of like, it happened, and like nobody batted an eye. And there's this one part where this assassin woman is about to assassinate somebody, and the guy's like, don't assassinate that guy over there though, because it's not his fault. And she's like, but he looked at me disrespectfully. And he's like, what, because he saw you as a woman? That's hard to do. And I'm like, are they telling your mama jokes like middle schoolers or something? What is this? So I asked all of you, hey, what do you recommend by this author? Was that really a good indication of his works? And a decent amount of you were like, yeah. I'm like, dang it. I was hoping maybe that was an outlier, because I know that can happen. And I have seen some reviews that say the opposite, that they love this author's works, and that Under Heaven was just an exception for them, that they didn't love that one, but they love a lot of his other stuff. So I'm hoping that's what's gonna happen with this. But if it doesn't, that's okay. It'll just be, you know, an author that's not for me. This next one is kind of almost like an honorable mention, even though I'm throwing it in the middle of this list, but I'm gonna say the next book in the Skyward series. This is Starsight, the second book. I adored Skyward, and then Starsight to me, it didn't have as much of the camaraderie that Skyward had, and I loved that element of the first book. There are just some other things that were built up in the first book that just like, bam, happened right away in this book, and things were a little bit easy as far as some of the plot situations. Like, the character kind of has to go under disguise, and they're like, good news, we just discovered how to make it so that you will look like someone else. And there's just always things that would pop up that were very convenient for the author, for the character to go about their mission. I did really like the ending of this one quite a bit, so I think there's a lot of potential there, but also there's also potential that I won't like the next one. The next two I'm going to mention for basically the same reason, so I'm going to lump them together. And it would be the continuation of the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. There's not an extra series that's come out after, I just mean I've only read the first one. So the next two, Monsters and Blood and Starlight and something like that. The next two, I get them mixed up. They're long names. And then Fate of the Tearling. I have the second one on my TBR. I'm planning on picking it up. But both of these series are ones that I've heard go downhill as you progress in the series, and I enjoyed the first books in both of these quite a bit. And also, you know what, I'm gonna lump in, for the same reason, I'm scared to keep going with the following books after Bloodsong. For the same reason, I have pretty much not heard anyone be like, I like the next books even more. Next up would be The Bear and the Nightingale, and this is a story that, I'm sorry about the sticker if that's annoying anyone. I haven't gotten it all the way off yet. This is a story that, from what I've heard about it, some of what I've heard and the complaints I have seen sound kind of similar to some of the things I have heard about Uprooted, which I didn't love. I had this one on my You Choose My TBR, and it won by quite a bit, so I'm hoping that I can trust all of you and you didn't lead me astray. But I think that, I'm still excited for it. I think it's going to be perfect to read when it starts getting cold and chilly, but I'll just, like all the rest of the books on this list, I'm a little nervous. Next up, we have The Warded Man. I believe in some countries it's called The Painted Man, and this is one that I've just heard a lot of people say that pretty much every female character, it's all about, are you a virgin or are you a naughty girl? And then they base their opinions on women on that, and like, women are meant to be in the house doing womanly chores, and also people are always trying to rape women all the time. It's one of those situations, and I get that some fantasy worlds are very dark, and that there are unfortunately things that are pitted against women, and if it's done in a way that I hate to say, if it's done well, I'm totally fine with it, because it sounds really dark. I'm not going to love that that's happening to the characters, but I understand that it's one of the things that the women in the world might have to face. But I have seen quite a few people say, even people who like the series, they're like, I wish that part wasn't so prevalent. And then people who don't like the series often don't like it because of those things. So I hope that I hope it's done well. But it's definitely made it so that I think that is the book on this list I am the most nervous for, because that's just such a thing in adult fantasy. This next book, I feel bad. This poor thing doesn't have much of a chance. And that would be the Shattered Realms series. I really enjoyed the Seven Realms series, which is the series that comes before this one. And then this is kind of a spin-off series that takes place after the events of the first quartet. I rarely like continuations. I think Six of Crows is one of the continuations I do like, because it's separated enough from the Grisha trilogy, which I think apparently now is officially the Shadow and Bone trilogy. Not that anyone cares, but I liked that one because it was separate enough. And then I read King of Scars, and I was like, I liked the first half, but then I felt like there were things that kind of sort of changed, in a sense, things from the original. series. And then Mistborn Second Era to me is just like, it's not the first era, and I'm sad. I'm sorry, I have a hair by my nose, and I don't want it to look like I'm picking my nose, but it's like right up in there. And it was itchy. Anyway, Mistborn Second Era, another example. I just miss the characters from the first series. It takes place hundreds of years after the first, and it's not bad. I'm just always like, it's not the same. And then Iron Gold in the continuation of Red Rising. Nope. Hated, not because it was a terrible book, but I just didn't like the direction it went, because it does have characters from the original series, and they just turn into monsters. They're just so stupid. I couldn't stand it. But this one, I'm nervous because I'm pretty sure I know something, because I asked someone and they told me, and I'm like, are you serious? And I was like really bummed about it. And so I think it's gonna be really hard for me to get over something that happens at the beginning of this series involving a character from the initial series. And then this has to be one of the most exceptional stories for me to even get over the fact that that event happens. I just don't like when continuations mess with anything that happened before, any of the characters from before. I'm like, leave them alone. Let them be in peace. Bring up other stuff. You can reference these other characters so that it's like a fun little character, like, oh, look, an Easter egg. That's fine, but just don't mess with my babies. That's it, though, for some books that I'm a little nervous to pick up for various different reasons. I still intend to pick up all of these books at some point. And what I'm hoping will happen is that because I wouldn't say I have low expectations, but because I don't think they're going to be the greatest books ever in the history of books, I'm almost hoping by going in with this hesitation that then I'll like it even more. Because the opposite happens sometimes, of course, where you go in and something is so hyped that it just can't live up to the hype that you've built it up to in your head. So I'm hoping that being like, that I'll be like really pleasantly surprised by all of these. Let me know if some books that you feel similarly about, that you're a little hesitant to pick up. Let me know if any of the books on this list you're like, no, they're great, don't you worry, they're wonderful. Or if you're like, I hate to break it to you, but it does suck. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.